Hello, I am Max from Test Drive Blogs, and today we're going to have a look at probably my favorite car I've driven for work so far. This is a 1968 Mercedes 200D, and let's have a look and see what makes this car so special. As you may know, Mercedes diesels have generally been known to be extremely reliable and able to go for hundreds of thousands of miles without having any major issues, which is kind of the same story for the one you're looking at right now. As shown by the service records for this car, it had over 700,000 miles on it with only one restoration under its belt. I've really just recently gotten into these diesel Mercedes and turbo diesel Mercedes, and it was all really thanks to this car. I drove this car and I was like, man, this feels really good. Even though it was extremely slow, which I'll get to later on the engine, it was so nice to drive. It was probably because of the restoration, but it really drove like a brand new car to me. If I had the funds to buy one and pay for insurance on it, I would probably buy a turbo diesel Mercedes and daily it. So looking at the exterior styling of the car, I'm not that much of a fan of these older ones, although they are pretty neat looking. I would much rather have a newer one, like an 80s or 70s at least. But it's really nice, and there's not much else to really say about it. The interior is all vinyl, blue colored, and features one of the coolest gauge pods I've ever seen in a car. The speedometer is kind of like a thing that it fills up, and it turns like red, and then it starts. It's weird to explain, but it's one of the coolest speedometers I've ever seen in a car. Even though the car itself is much smaller than the newer versions of the Mercedes sedans, the big Mercedes sedans, there's still quite a bit of space inside for a driver and a few friends. As I mentioned before, this car is nowhere near any kind of the word fast. It has a 2-liter diesel engine, no turbo, that makes 55 horsepower. Yeah, 55 horsepower, and I'm not entirely sure about torque. But even though it's slow, it really doesn't feel... I mean, it does feel slow whenever you're trying to go from a stop and it takes you 10 seconds to get to 30 miles per hour, but you know, it doesn't exactly help that it's made it up to an automatic transmission, which I think there was a manual available during this generation, but altogether it's not really that bad. One of the funniest parts about this car was that it actually reminded me, because of the diesel, it reminded me of the sound and the smell of the diesel engines in like school buses and stuff, which is really funny. Which, just imagine that coming out of a small-ish sedan. So pretty much this car is an extremely nice cruising car. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video of the 1968 Mercedes-Benz 200D or 200 diesel. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So check out Moto Exotica in the description below if you haven't already. And I am out of here. See ya!